let's get right into it, man. A lot of people do not know, I think, the amount of work that went into the Navy All-American Bowl, the partnership that we have with them, a great game, historic game, all-star game that's been going on for quite some time. And if you think about it, you look at the game on Saturday, you probably think it's a normal game, maybe some small changes with the 2026s being added. But we had a lot of opt-outs. And for you, somebody on the selection committee, take us a little bit further under the hood and give us a little bit of background on what the last couple of weeks, months have been like as you've been trying to fill this roster out all the way up until the day of the game.
Yeah, Coop, it's, as college football evolves, so do the postseason all-star events. And this time last year, I went to the folks who put on the game there in San Antonio. I said, hey, we got to get juniors in this game. We're going to see more seniors, not only going through bowl practices, but just arriving on campus early. You think about name, image, and likeness. There is a race to get to college as soon as you can. And hey, we're not going to knock anyone that's doing it, right? So in come the juniors. But the other thing is, a lot of invitations went out, and we had a lot of prospects kind of opt out and decline, and for a variety of different reasons. Most of them wanted to start classes. You think about those spring semesters, they kicked off last week. It's hard to, move into your college dorm, leave for a week, and come back. So I think I counted, 15 or 16 different quarterback invites were turned down. But hey, I love the 6 guys we had there inside the Alamo Dome. And then if you want to go position by position, I think that number crept towards 100. With that being said, what we saw in San Antonio, I think we had 40 or 50 future NFL guys there. This was the biggest, the largest the All-American Bowl has been in its 25-year history. I mean, Coop, consider this. There's only one player under 5'9" there. That was Winston Watkins, who has big features and caught 94 passes as a senior. So it looked like the Senior Bowl a little bit in terms of that event for the NFL evaluators. A lot of talent, a lot of guys I want to talk about, and a really, really good week.
Kudos to you and the crew. I didn't know what to expect going in, adding the juniors to the game. Was it going to water down the product a little bit? I thought ultimately, Drew, we've been doing this, I think you and I for the last 4 years, at least myself. I thought this was the best roster that we had. You bring in the energy from the young guys in the 2026 group. It made for a great joint practice on Wednesday as well. So the All-American Bowl on Saturday, obviously a lot to take from that. And now we'll get to that. And Drew, I think you and I wanted to go from a team perspective here, kind of looking at the week and which guys kind of stood out. Let's start with Michigan. A lot of expectations going into year 2 under Sharon Moore. You talk about a team that had completely flipped the script once they landed Bryce Underwood, the number 1 player in the country, flipped him from LSU. You look at other guys on this roster, Andrew Babalola, Nate Marshall, Andrew Marsh, Jordan Young, all those guys present in San Antonio. But I want to start with the big man, the number 2 offensive tackle, and Andrew Babalola. What did you see from him this week, and where do you think he can make an impact here in the next couple years in Ann Arbor?
It's kind of crazy. I mean, Andrew Babalola has only been playing organized football for really 2 to 3 years. He's a former basketball-focused athlete. He's our number 2 ranked offensive tackle. And look, Michigan, we look at them in 2025. I mean, Bryce Underwood's the guy that's going to make all the headlines. But I said it a few months ago when Andrew Babalola picked Michigan. I thought he was the biggest win to date for Sharon Moore. Sharon Moore has ties to Kansas. That's where Andrew Babalola is from. Look, he's still raw in pass protection. He kind of sits in the bucket, waits, isn't the most aggressive in his pass sets. But I love what we saw from him in the run game. And Cooper, I don't think there's a better program Andrew Babalola could have picked. He's a guy that's going to need to be on ice for 1 to 2 years. But Michigan's track record when it comes to those big corner protectors, I think it's a match made in heaven. This is the kid that's going to be protecting Bryce Underwood, our number 1 ranked senior, his blind side in the years to come. Really fired up just kind of about that potential. I think if you're a Michigan fan, this is the duo you need to know moving forward as we continue in the Sharon Moore tenure.
Fired up for Andrew Babalola as well, a guy that I don't want to say we had a lot of question marks about, but I think we were really, really eager to see in this environment. You talked about him being pretty green at the offensive tackle position. We talk about it all the time. This is the premium position in college football and the NFL alike. You got to get them where they are. Michigan going down to Kansas, being able to snag Andrew Babalola, a big pickup for them. Drew, I want to touch on Nate Marshall real quick because another guy we're trying to figure out, how long is he? What does he look like? Can you play him at a 2-point? Is he a 3-point guy? What'd you think about his week in San Antonio?
He came alive. I think in the actual game, we had him with 3 quarterback pressures, a sack. You're right. Is he an inside-outside guy? I think you use him on the perimeter. And just like we said with Andrew Babalola and Michigan's track record when it comes to kind of player development, Michigan makes us consistently look bad in the rankings because they take these 3-star prospects and they turn them into NFL draft picks. Now you drop a guy like Nathaniel Marshall into that weight room, into the meeting rooms, and they're going to be able to squeeze the most out of this guy. I still think he needs to go through a little bit of a physical maturation, right? He's still growing. I think he can get much stronger, but loved his first step, loved his ability to come around the corner. This was another big win for the Wolverines kind of after they got Bryce Underwood in the boat. They flip him from Auburn, and really he's another one of the headliners in this recruiting class for UM.
All right, speaking of player development programs, we got to talk about Notre Dame, especially the job that they have done here over the last couple of seasons under Marcus Freeman, now playing in a national championship, well represented in San Antonio. One of those guys, Drew, that was under a spotlight. How about Will Black from Connecticut, a guy that we were eager to see? Christopher Burgess was a guy that you were excited about coming into the week. James Flanagan, Anthony Saka as well. Let's start with Will Black. What'd you think about the performance that he had this week? Is this a potential guy that could move up the board, or do we like where we have him?
Yeah, I think he's a guy we could scale up a little bit. And really, Cooper, I mean, coming out of these all-star games, and, we're at the tail end of this cycle. We know it as good as we probably are before they, start colleges and we see them on Saturdays. I think the strength is the offensive tackle position. And where does Will Black kind of fit in there? This is another guy originally from Canada, has only been playing organized football for a few years. He's got a hockey background. I mean, he came in at 6'7". You see it right there, 295 pounds. He looks like he's 235 pounds, and he moves like a guy that is that light in the pants. I think he's more of a right tackle than he is a left tackle. The East squad kind of moved him between those two positions throughout the week. I thought he had his most success on the right side of the line. And you think about Notre Dame, right? They've had depth in the trenches. They've leaned on some young guys early. Super important get for them. A guy they beat out of plenty of schools for. I thought it was a big week for Will Black. We'll see where he finishes, right? Because there are a lot of these big trees on the outside that we like, but a solid showing for him. And then really Christopher Burgess, I think he was kind of one of these guys that had a really quiet, dominant week. You look at him outside of Chicago, played primarily middle linebacker as a senior, over 100 tackles. He was working as a 3 technique this week. I love the bull rush, his ability to kind of generate and move people off the line of scrimmage. I think that's a nice win for Notre Dame, a guy that got in very early in the class. Marcus Freeman, him and his staff do an excellent job with talent identification. I wouldn't be surprised 2-3 years down the line, we look in Chris Burgess as a staple in the middle because he's just now scratching the surface of what he can be.
Good things ahead for Notre Dame on the eve of playing for a national championship. You got to be excited if you're an Irish fan right now under Marcus Freeman. Drew, the game is in San Antonio, so obviously there's going to be a lot of Texas flavor there. You think about Texas A&M, and the SEC, but SMU as well. All of a sudden, you and I, the rest of the boys, are looking down at the roster and saying, wow, the Mustangs are really well represented here. Drew, I'll let you take this wherever you want to go. Between those 3 programs in the state of Texas, what were some eye catchers there, what you saw this week?
Yeah, well, let's give Rhett Lashley and the Ponies here a shout out. SMU's classes start a little bit later that spring semester, and he was more than willing to allow his players to participate in the game. We used a lot of late invites on SMU signees, and I'm glad we did because I think the future of SMU's offense was there in San Antonio. Quarterback Ty Hawkins, a local kid from San Antonio, Jalen Cooper, a wide receiver, Draymond Odoms, and Dremeco Green, the running back. Draymond Odoms, we had never seen him in this type of setting. He looked excellent at check-in. I think he's the left tackle of the future for SMU. And then how about Jalen Cooper, hauled in a 91-yard touchdown in the game on Saturday. This is a guy that can get vertical. You think about SMU breaking through into the playoff in their first year in the ACC. They did a lot of that through transfers, right? A lot of veterans came in, guys that Rhett Lashley had at Miami. Well, their recruiting class sitting 32nd in 2025. They've kind of flipped the script. Right now, they're trying to get these high school recruits inside the building. really excited about what we saw from that group. With Texas, hey, you got to talk about the 3 wide receivers, right? Arch Manning or Quinn Ewers is eventually going to have to throw passes to someone. Matthew Golden could be gone. Isaiah Bond could be gone. They're going to have to find some wide receivers. I thought Khalil Lockett, a 5-star prospect for us, he's someone, hey, how elite is he? Is he going to be ready to go as a true freshman? I thought a really strong week for him. Jamie French as well kind of represents Texas's national push on the recruiting front. That's a kid they went into Florida, stole from a variety of different schools. Ohio State wanted him, LSU wanted him, and then, of course, Florida's big 3. He scores in the game, really solid week. And then with Texas A&M, Cooper, hey, Mike Elko, he was hired. We weren't sure what it would look like as a recruiter. I was really impressed with all the future Aggies we saw there in San Antonio. The one I want to highlight, Keoti Armstrong. I think he's a cheat code, right? Number 3 tight end for us right now. Is he going to be in that 5-star conversation? We'll see. But he was the first off the bus at check-in. We're talking about a guy that's 6'5", 268 pounds. He moves like he's 200 pounds. I think he could be a 6th offensive lineman. You can attach him, detach him. Played Wildcat quarterback in high school. Kind of a quiet week statistically, but it was one of those guys where your eyes just kept going to Keoti Armstrong.
You were like Kevin Costner in the movie Draft Day, like Keoti Armstrong, no matter what. You love Keoti Armstrong. I'm glad we got to talk about him. The new wrinkle in the game is that juniors can play, and it's an adjustment period for everybody, including the players that are going up against some of the best players in the entire country. But the good thing about this show is we don't only get to talk about the stars of today. We get to talk about the stars of tomorrow. So right now is a good time to take a pen and paper and jot down some of these names that Andrew's getting ready to cook on. So, Drew, let's talk about the quarterbacks, because one of them was the MVP of the game, and that is Keyshawn Henderson, committed to Houston 2026. There's a lot of conversation, dialogue. Is he an athlete? Is he a quarterback? I think he put that to sleep this weekend. What'd you like about him?
Oh, cool. I said on the 105 back in November, right, as we kind of went through the junior seasons, that I thought I was buying into the idea of Keyshawn Henderson being a quarterback. And guess what? One of those QB spots opened up, and I went right to everyone at the Navy All-American Bowl. I said, let's let Keyshawn Henderson play some QB. I'm glad we did, right? Now, wasn't the sharpest in practice, right? He's kind of an erratic passer at times. With that being said, he was awesome Saturday inside the Alamo Dome. He threw a 91-yard touchdown pass and play where he got away from pressure, threw that deep ball, scores the touchdown, opened up the scoring, and he finished the day with 4 explosive plays. Also had 2 long completions and had a 20-yard scramble. This is a kid where in the production meetings, right, with the broadcast crew, everyone loved him. I asked him, hey, who are your top receivers? He gave me a full scouting report. I said he's got a job at 24/7 Sports whenever he's done with football. I mean, he went detail by detail. And this is a kid that really helped his stock. Some schools view Keyshawn Henderson as a wide receiver. Other think, hey, maybe he's a defensive back. Houston is going to let him play quarterback. That's why he's committed to Willie Fritz, the program that's 35 minutes away from his house. With that being said, much like Keelan Russell in SMU last year, I think Houston's going to have their work cut out for them, because Keyshawn Henderson showed on a big stage that, hey, I am one of the top quarterbacks in the class of 2026.
All right, one of the other late additions to this game that I was really excited to see was Bo Bentley. I didn't know a lot about him coming into the week, but once the 7-on-7 period was done, you get on to 11-on-11, you see him in the team period, you're going back, you're looking at your roster, and you're saying, who's this guy, this junior that's kind of turning heads? Because, Drew, I don't know about you, I thought the internal clock, I thought the instincts, the intangibles at the position that is required to play the position at such a high level, Bo Bentley really showed what he could do this week. I'm excited about this kid.
That crafty mover in the pocket, and he throws with anticipation. I labeled him coming out of the week as the best processor there, which is a bit crazy when you consider the fact he was the only first-year starter, went 16-0 as a junior, led his team to a Texas for a Division I state title. He reminds me, Cooper, a little bit kind of Sam Howell. Maybe it's the size, the stature, how they look, but I think they play the game pretty similarly. And Bo Bentley rushed for almost 1,000 yards as a junior. We didn't really get to see a ton of his legs in terms of him taking off. but just how he kind of felt pressure and got away and kept his eyes down the field. That's what you want to see. Bo Bentley came into the week with 9 scholarship offers, picked up 5 of them while he was in San Antonio. Georgia's also called. Ole Miss is keeping tabs. USC, Ole Miss as well. Certainly a name to know as we kind of have these reshuffling of quarterbacks. Bo Bentley, a name that I think a lot of schools might pivot to here as we see the quarterback dominoes fall once again.
I think before the game, you're looking at this game and you're saying, all right, there are a lot of opt-outs here with the seniors. Maybe they're getting on campus early, whatever it is. But how could that be an opportunity for somebody else? How could that be an opportunity for a Keyshawn Henderson or a Bo Bentley? You're seeing it in real life, in real time. That happened during the week. You said it. He had 9 scholarship offers. By the end of the week, he had 5 more as well. Think about that position, what it could do for that type of guy, that setting, showing his capability on good. All right, Drew, there are no shortage of options any which way you want to go here on 2026 standouts, guys that really kind of carried themselves throughout the week, maybe guys that surprised. But wherever you want to start, who really kind of caught your eye in this junior class?
It's got to start with tackle Felix Ojo, another one of these corner protectors. He really is a tree out on the edge. And he was a guy at check-in. I remember I'm sitting there, I'm texting our guys like, hey, who is this? Who is this? Who is this? Because I wasn't sure. I mean, he aced the eyeball test, all of 6'6", 275 pounds. And Coop, what really stood out to me, they had an opening dinner the first night, pull-up competition, right? It was with the Navy. They had a Navy SEAL up there. They were doing it for like a boombox and some type of gift card. The first 2 players that volunteered to do it, Keyshawn Henderson and then Felix Ojo. Well, Felix Ojo at 275 pounds, he did 11 strict pull-ups, which is a bit freaky, right? He's already a candidate to be on my 2026 freaks list. And then all week, I thought just kind of how he competed for a younger guy there. He wasn't afraid to mix it up after the whistle. You talk with any of the coaches that were working the game, they've raved about Felix Ojo. First player on the West squad to ask for a playbook. He was the first guy, an offensive lineman. Texas A&M believed to be the 2 schools in there for Felix Ojo. Cooper, I think as programs reset their recruiting boards, this is going to be a very, very coveted commodity. I think it's going to be a heavyweight slugfest for Felix Ojo because he just checks off box after box.
I love the way that he competed. One of those guys just from a standpoint of being 275 pounds. You look at the rest of the offensive linemen just a year later where they are in their physical development. I thought he held up well, but you talked about the competitive temperament, even with that little nugget that you gave about him in the pull-up contest. I thought that translated to the field as well. And then when you talk to him off the field, what a guy, a gentleman, but it's got that nasty, can flip the switch on as well. Drew, a couple backers that we were really, really intrigued to see in this type of setting, Tyler Atkinson being one, but the guy that we were really pumped to see, how about Xavier Griffin, one of the top players in the country in 2026, a guy that you say reminds you a lot of Jahad Campbell, the standout at Alabama, who's got a pretty good chance to go day 1 of the NFL draft. What'd you think of those 2 guys representing the state of Georgia?
I think there's a reason why we have him number 1 and number 2 when it comes to the linebackers there in the 2026 cycle. They were as good as advertised. And Xavier Griffin, you turn on his junior tape. This is a guy that's primarily rushing from a 2-point stance on the edge. Well, hey, they asked him to be an off-ball linebacker this week, and I thought he delivered, right? Sideline to sideline range. He's physical. He can cover and get in passing lanes. I think he had an interception in the first snap of 7-on-7 to start the week. Really, really good game. Hudson Stanich on our scouting team went back and kind of reviewed the tape. He said, hey, Xavier Griffin is all over the place. And it's the same thing with Tyler Atkinson, right? Tyler Atkinson, over 475 career tackles. He's still got a senior season to play. These guys are consistently in the right place when they need to be. And I think when you think, all right, moving forward to the next recruiting cycle, Xavier Griffin's committed to USC. Tyler Atkinson, he's considering all schools all around the country. If I'm Kirby Smart in Georgia and Cooper, I think we have a pretty good idea of how that program is run. It's going to be hard for Kirby Smart to let those 2 get outside of the Peach State. So certainly kind of an early storyline to keep in mind as the race for the number 1 class in 2026 begins.
All right, Drew, we got about 20 seconds, but I know there's some meat left on the bone here. Give us a couple names to know here in 2026.
How about Mr. International, Valdin Sone? This is a kid I first scouted 2 years ago in Germany, Swedish transplant, mixed martial arts background, late add to the game. We had no idea what to expect. I thought technically he was much better. He's up to 320 pounds. He looks like an SEC nose, and I think a lot of schools are trying to figure out Valdin Sone. Absolutely. Hey, get him on campus, and you want to take his commitment now because his stock is only going to get more and more pricey as this cycle progresses.